Although I am doing another installment of getting out of depression and trying to heal and assess what's been going on. 5 years ago, I think, uh, as I've stated before, my grandfather died. My mother came in and told my son to go be a male prostitute, which really shocked me. But she pretended to be nice in front of everyone else. Um, it's fascinating because, in part, I had healed from all of this. I was told via Facebook that I had been disowned and disinherited by my aunt's friend, and then I was never allowed to come back home. I think I'm probably one of the only persons that have gotten disowned over a Facebook message. And apparently it was because of the way they saw my pictures and I was dressing. And these are people that have never traveled out of the country, probably very ignorant and racist. I'm going to put it down like that, racist. What I want to get to in this video, there's actually 2 or 3 important parts that I want to get to. But I don't know if this is narcissism, narcissistic abuse, or just an incestuous sort of pedophilia. I'm not sure. But I remember reading about children, Mormons, male Mormon children being ousted out of the family because the father saw them as a competitor. So a lot of there's an issue of Mormon men, young teen men, getting thrown out because the father saw them as sexual competition. Now, keep in mind, my aunt married the 21-year-old boy. I won't go into details about other family members, but there is some sort of family intermingling going on. So when my mother inherited money from my uncle, this is another aspect I want to get onto, is most families, or not most families, I would say that's also part of the problem, is families not supporting each other. But by God, I literally got disowned overnight. Was told my son and I need to go be prostitutes. And it's really disgusting because instead of helping, they wanted to destroy me. These people, my mom and her sister. I was doing very well. I've always been a very vibrant soul. I love to travel. I've done acting. I have succeeded in ways that they have never dreamed of. And I think there was some jealousy. I wish I had never had an open Facebook page or let them on there. Maybe not just jealousy, maybe racism, maybe sexual, what's the word for it? Projection on me. So when my mother inherited the money and my grandfather died, that day that she came, when I went down there, she told me this about my son and I, go be prostitutes. It was not about from a narcissistic family unit. It was her green light to systematically now destroy her daughter. And she tried when I was in college, when I was 25 years old. She told me to go be homeless. Me and my son. It was always you and your son. And they're such hypocrites because I should, this is once again, if you're listening, do not let them back into your lives once they show you over 3 times this repetitive narcissistic behavior. And it could actually span between years. We're talking like 5 years, and then they'll feel, they'll want to reel you back in. Exactly 5 years. It's been 5 years. So my mother apologized to me and said that she was dying, which was a lie. She wasn't. She'd just broken 3 ribs. And I gave up everything to go be by her side because once again, and this is maybe where I'm at fault, I wanted so badly to have a family. So the destruction, how I ended up homeless was I came back from make a long story short, my boss in Singapore promised me a job back in the Bay Area, and it was a lie. And I ended up homeless in San Francisco when I got back. And my mom knew this, and she was laughing at me. Instead of like, oh, Michelle, how can you, come on home? She started saying, ha, 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 like literally laughing. You're on that welfare now, aren't you? With a Southern accent. Or, and then unfortunately, being homeless, especially in San Francisco, can traumatize the brain. I don't do drugs. And I unfortunately did fall into alcohol. But each time I was strong enough to get myself out of it. I'm a yoga therapist, so thank God I have that skill. Yeah, I was able to get out of it each time. Unfortunately, also, I think it's being disowned was a shock because I never got to. Oh, they would not only did they disown me, they made sure I could never call home or talk to anybody. For 5 years, they played the what's it called? The tactic where they ignore you. It's the silent treatment. But this was done within the whole family unit. So here I was, I thought they should have congratulated me for getting a cool job in Singapore, but yet they were saying I was a prostitute. It was actually for a drone company, a UAV autonomous drone company. And they were working on getting them to do ballet movements in the sky and such. But these people had their minds in the gutter and decided prostitute. But that's what my mother wanted. That's why it's so crazy. Like when my granddad died, her telling me, your son's going to be nothing more than a male prostitute. It's really sick. She has had this stuff planned. Another thing with narcissistic abusers, Malignant. I realized me wanting to go to college or getting accepted to college when I was 15 and her saying, no daughter of mine's going to go to college. And then when I was going to college, I had let her back in my life and was staying with her. And then she woke up one morning and said, you and your son need to go be at a homeless shelter. And then her laughter, like when she inherited the money and my grandfather died, it was her time to get in control and power and finally destruct me. And if I had been stronger, if I had been able to prepare for this, I would have had a partner, I would have had a home. I've had a lot of issues in my life apart from the narcissistic abuse, with bad luck. Anyway, I remember when I was who would think that their own mother would. Oh, and I came down with periodontal disease, a pretty aggressive form of it from the stress. And I called her and told her, and she started to laugh at me. She goes, oh, and then she goes, well, I'm getting my dental implants. So unfortunately, like, yeah. And I fell for it again. I went down there. They all just humiliated me. They all said, I went to, it was my granddad's house, and then 2 days later, my cousin and her husband come in. Or no, it was, I think, like 3 days later. They put the for sale on the house. And every item of my grandfather had been given to my cousin and her husband, and then my aunt, and I'll call them teen pedophiles, aunt and 30-year-old guy. And I hate to call her a pedophile, but it's true. And I also think that's exactly going on to where the Mormons push their kids out on the streets, or their male offspring that they see as competition. So I think there's some really sick sexual deviant stuff going on in my particular family unit. Next, at least I'm feeling better. My teeth hurt so bad. I was doing fine up until my mom begged me for forgiveness. I drove down there to be by her side. And pedophile aunt and them kept trying to call the police and telling these people to get me out of there. And guess what? I'm the only heir to what my mother has. So, and this is another sign of malignant narcissism. My mother would rather sign everything over, which she did. She signed the house, everything, something called Power Up on Death to my aunt and pedophile guy, or pedophile aunt. So she'd rather, and these people were never in her life. They just came in to be friends with her right after she inherited the money. And she was a very easy target because of the malignant narcissism in her. She wanted all her life nothing more to see me suffer. And I am so happy my aunt was never in my life. My God. Like, just absolutely really gross people. I can't think of anything nice to say about them. Except for my sister. But my sister was also a victim of abuse from my mother. And so, also next, apart from racism, the next subject I want to touch is, I think it's called Munich's disorder, and its relationship to malignant narcissism. Because I realize in my mother's case, she tried to make me go crazy, like this whole disowning thing over Facebook for no reason and no contact with the family, and she knew I was begging to call someone. That would make anyone go a little crazy because it happened out of the blue. It didn't even happen like, hey, I did something wrong, we're gonna disown you. It happened out of the blue with fake malicious lies, and then laughing at me being homeless. And I mean, that would hurt anybody's heart big time. And then telling your son to go mute. I mean, like, just sick stuff. So oh, she always said she hated my sister because my sister took a shit on her the day she was born. This is a type of evil we're dealing with. So I think she made my sister go crazy too. Well, I'm not completely crazy yet, but, and that's the weird thing. When I went down there to go help her, they were trying to either call the police on me and get me arrested, or their other goal was to put me in a mental institution. And I think I said this on my other video. When I was 16 years old, my mom came in on my 16th birthday, actually came and beat me up. That was my 16th birthday. I remember her saying, I'm going to get you in a mental institution. I'm going to get you in a mental institution. And she even called the police, and the police were like, what are you doing? And I was like, what's going on? So yeah, this is real, real sick, and I have to heal from it. And I wish there were outlets for me, because like, and for other people, especially children or LGBTQs or anything, people that are put out on the streets either for, they think, the parents think that they're, not sexual. I don't know, but just because someone's homeless, it doesn't mean they got there by themselves. They probably, not all of them, don't get me wrong, but a good percentage have been victims of malignant narcissism within the family unit. And it's unfortunate because when you become homeless, people look at you and think, oh, what's wrong with this person? Does this person do drugs? Oh, what happened to them? And the sickest thing, and apart from all the other sick things I've said in my particular situation, is my mother had an empty home. An empty home for 5 years because she moved in with my grandmother. And so the home was empty, and she knew I was homeless. And she knew my son was homeless. My son now, I'll get to him later on more videos, but it's affected him. He's actually gone through it, not only with my mother and her family, but he's gone through it with his own father in a very vicious way. And so unfortunately, I think how they say empaths attract narcissists. So I had a child with a very malignant narcissist. And just, what else? There's one more thing I want to say. My mother and my grandmother were very content when things were going well. I actually flew them out to Spain. And they were all happy for my son. And then when my son was doing well, they do what I've read narcissistic parents, and they wanted to take control of him and get, take my authority away. And I had raised him, and he was perfect. And then he got to South Carolina, and his face kept getting bashed in for being Hispanic. So when things went downhill for him, they turned his back on him, and I think it's also racism because I'm foreign, my son is foreign, and I was sort of contemplating, okay, they're huge Trump supporters, they're going around doing Confederate flag stuff, being proud of their Southern heritage, and apart from the narcissistic abuse and all the other things I've talked about, there is a racist element here as well. So thank you for listening, and I am getting a little bit better, which is good. These bouts of depression, when you realize you have no family, can be pretty tough because the fear of being homeless again is more debilitating than anything. It's traumatic. I would not wish homelessness on my worst enemy, much less my own children or grandchildren. And I wouldn't gloat. And apparently, my mother says that people make money off of being homeless. I mean, she's a whole different type of crazy.